So let's continue on with naming compounds with multivalent ions. I already did FeCl3, Cl3, yeah, so I crossed that one out. That was the example above. So let's try some other ones here. So we've got FeI3. So again, we're using that iron. We know Fe is iron, and we know that it is in that place on the periodic table. We don't know the charge. So that middle part, Fe is right there, and we don't know its charge. So that's what we got to try and figure out. We do know what I's charge is. So let me just write iron, because we know that's iron. We don't know its charge, so we're going to have to write those Roman numerals. And what is the charge of I? So we need to figure out what I is. I is number 53. It's iodine, and it's in that -1 column. So I'm going to write iodine here. Remember, when it's in a compound, we're going to change that ending to "ide." So it becomes iodide. And then we are going to try and figure out what the charge of iron is here. So just like the other one, we're going to sort of work our way backwards as our detective work. We got Fe, we don't know the charge, but we know the charge of I, which is -1. Because there's 3 of the -1s, that whole side of the equation is -3. To make it balanced, we got to have the same amount of positives as we do negatives. So if this whole side is -3, this side has to be +3, so that we have an overall charge of 0. They got to cancel each other out, okay? So if this whole side is 3 and there's only one of them there, then the charge of this must be +3. So how does that translate to our Roman numerals? Well, 3 plus 3, Roman numerals, is 3 like that. We just put a 3. It's always going to be positive because metals are always positively charged. They're always the cations. So we just got to use Roman numerals to identify what the charge, that positive charge is. And in this case, iron is +3. Perfect. Let's try PbO2. That's the next one. Our first step here is to figure out what Pb is and O2, and then put our Roman numeral brackets there. So Pb, it's going to be in this space where we don't know the charge of it. I'm trying to find it. I know what Pb is. Pb's right here. So Pb is number 82, and it is lead. Notice that it's in the column just past the -3, so we're not sure what this column the charges are. And that's in that sort of space in between the metals and non-metals, but we know lead is a metal, or at least I hope you know that's metal. So this is lead. We don't know the charge. We put that little space there, and we know what O is, or at least I hope you do. It's oxygen. And then the N, we change it to oxide when we're dealing with a compound. So this is lead something oxide, and we can figure out what the charge of lead is by going backwards from what the charge oxygen has. Let's find oxygen in the periodic table. It's actually number 8 here, and it's in the -2 column. So that means that it's -2. So we can use our detective skills here to be like, okay, if oxygen has a -2, I always like to draw that line between them. This 2 multiplied by that will give us -4. So if that whole side is -4, this whole side has to be +4. There's only one lead, so we don't have to split that +4 between anything. It's just one lead, so that means the charge is +4 on lead. How does that translate to Roman numerals? Well, Roman numerals would be 4. So we got to find out what the charge, the charge of 4 is, or sorry, the Roman numerals for 4 is IV. I like to put little lines. I don't know, that's what makes sense to me. However you would like to do it. So that's how you do that one. I'm going to do Ni2S3, and then we'll move along. I don't know if there's some space here. I'll do it right here. All right, so let's do Ni2S3. Our first step here is to figure out what Ni and S is. If we look up Ni, it is nickel. And it's in that transition metal area, so we don't know what the charge of it is. I'll show you where it is. It's number 28, nickel. Okay. Oops. So we got nickel there, and we don't know what the charge is, so we put those brackets for our Roman numeral when we get to that part. Then we need to figure out what S is, and oops. S is over on the right-hand side, and S is in the -2 column. It's sulfur. So we're going to write sulfur, but we're going to write sulfide because we need to change that ending, okay? So we write sulfur, then we take off the ending to make it an ide. So this is nickel something sulfide. We got to figure out what the charge of nickel is. So working backwards, draw our line down the middle and figure out what our charge is on S. S is number 16. It's in the -2 column. I think we already said that, but just to show you that. So S has a -2 because there is 3 of them there. See, these two numbers need to be multiplied together. Then 2 times 3 would give us a 6. So that whole side is -6. That means that this whole other side has to be +6. To be +6, that whole side has to be +6, but there's 2 nickels there. So if there's 2 nickels, that means 2 times what? I guess we need to think. 2 times what gives us 6. So this is our 2 times something up here. Oops. Will give us 6. And the answer is 3. It's a +3. So 2 times 3 gives us this 6. Okay? So you would go 2 times 3 gives us 6. So then we would have our charge on nickel would be +3. All right? So that's how we would do that example. All right? So when you're doing these ones, you need to sometimes, it's working backwards, and sometimes you need to sort of do some detective work to figure it out. All right? Anyway, moving on from there. I will stop there for a second, and I'll continue in a minute.